day everyone, and welcome to another vlog for the Exodus 7 to 12 KGV project. This week I actually got to do a lot of stuff. Primarily I focused on sound work, and I also got roughly 28 seconds of footage finished. Now don't get too excited, it's not like 28 seconds of full-on action, all sorts of different stuff. It's pretty much talking, that's why I can do so much in a week. Actually 3 days. But I got to do a lot of sound work over the weekend and on Friday and all that kind of stuff. So I invite you guys to go check out last week's video so you guys can compare this week's stuff from last week's footage. So without further ado, let's get into the sound work for the week. So I'm just going to hide this week's footage so we don't accidentally roll on over it. Yeah. Oh, a few issues there. Just a quick update. If you find that your audio is not functioning the way it's supposed to, a great fix that they've put in the 2.79 build is to actually update your animation cache. You find that under your scene settings. All you need to do is just set your frame range, put it at the start of your frame range, just clicking this little back skip button, and then click update animation cache. It will look as if Blender froze. It didn't. Just let it do its thing, let it finish, and once it's done, it goes fairly quick. You'll be able to play it back and it'll be great. So I always do this just before rendering out the final result so that everything is as it's supposed to be. So basically what I did this week was, if you look at this part over here, I just extended the water sound, which does need a little bit of adjustment. I feel it's a little bit too crisp, especially for the slow motion part. So I still need to change that a little bit. The timing of the strikes are the same as last week. Also extended the clothing ruffle thing up until this point over here because it stops, it's not the same. Yeah, it has to stop. The usual crowd mumbling continues, and of course I reduce the crowd mumbling sound the second it goes there because it goes away from the crowd. But you can still see the crowd in the background. So of course I also added the water sloshing type sound here as he turns it over. And of course we have the pouring sound where it hits the ground. And the same splatter type sound when it hits the ground is the same one I used for the post-strike sound, if I can put it that way. I put a bit of a whoosh in here for the time he throws it up. It's almost like a transition also towards the slow motion. You can see it's the transition point from normal speed to slow motion. And then, of course, he dodges, comes down, and boom. I also added some small stick wishes to the strike so that there would just be a little bit more character there. It's surprising how many times you use a wish in something. Of course, the same for there and for the others as well. And the same, and I also used a little bit of a ceramic crashing type sound to just finish it off as the pieces hit the ground along with the splatter. So it's a good amount of sound work, honestly. It took a lot of time. So you can see there's the shatter of the large pots, and these are the smaller sounds that accompany it, the spatter and the pieces hitting the ground. And of course, that leads us to today's stuff. Another important part of sound work this week was flies. Now, flies typically are hard to record because they're super small. Try saying that fast. What happens is especially with phones like mine, the microphones aren't sensitive enough to just pick up a fly buzzing around the room. So I had to look for like a swarm or something. And I'll write more about this in the post, but I want to just play you guys the final piece together sound. Well, basically, all that is the ambient one, the ambient part of the sound. And of course, these little takeoffs and landings that would steadily increase as the swarm gets closer. Before the swarm actually gets to you, you won't get these little pop sounds. So what it would sound like is this. I'll just mute all these pops where they get up and whatever. So you'd first hear that, and then as it gets closer, the popping would steadily increase in regularity. And then when they're on you, you would see something like, you would get something like this. Just obviously with more regularity. But yeah, moving on. I'm just going to play it to you guys.
Say unto Aaron, take thy rod and stretch out thine hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon their rivers, and upon their ponds, and upon all their pools of water, that they may become blood. And that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in vessels of wood and in vessels of stone.
A little bit stoic for my taste, but I really do like it in a way. The irony for me is that I set his gaze on Aaron, but it looks like he's looking like past him this way. It's just one of those things. I don't know. But I do want to end it slightly early with him actually exchanging sticks or rods, whatever. Because at this point, Aaron is holding Moses's and Moses is holding Aaron's, because God specifically told Moses to strike the river with Aaron's rod. You know, the one that was turning into the lizard serpent thing. So, yeah. What I also did is I added this little stripe effect over here, because the blood would, kind of stain it a little bit. So it's nothing fancy. All I did was use the texture that was already there to warp a blend texture that was just kind of creeping up over the edge of the water. It's nothing fancy. It looks cool, but it's nothing fancy. Also, this lip sync took a lot of work, and it is extremely good compared to the other stuff that I've done already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be showing you guys what that lip sync actually looks like.
Take thy rod and stretch out thine hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon their rivers, and upon their ponds, and upon all their pools of water, that they may become blood. And that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in vessels of wood and in vessels of stone.
Oh, just love it. Absolutely love it.
Take thy rod and stretch out thine hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon their rivers, and upon their ponds, and upon all their pools of water, that they may become blood. And that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in vessels of wood and in vessels of stone.
I have to say the latter part of it is better than the former one. It's just... it's like the mouth movements make more sense. For example, if you say upon, the mouth goes closed instead of opening. I made an error in the sense that when he says upon, that the mouth opens instead of closes. So anyway, I'm very satisfied with that lip sync. Much better quality than the previous one. For example, in the previous one, you don't really get the sense that it's him speaking in a way. Let me show you. Okay, from here, I'm just going to hit play. Pay close attention. You can hear that I also turned the flames on for ambient noise. I need to turn it down a smidge more. On headphones, it's a lot stronger than on my sound system. So it will be adjusted. Just pay attention to his mouth.
When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron,
Take thy rod and cast it before Pharaoh.
The before Pharaoh part is right, but the take thy rod and cast it looks off. But anyway, I'm super happy with the new lip sync. It is awesome. Just absolutely love it. On to something more. Now, this is not the new, let me just get my words together, what I want to say. Now, this is not a new method. This is the new method that God gave me a few weeks ago, where I use like this cutout system to create a 3D space. It's a really effective method, especially considering the MistPass actually does handle transparency extraordinarily well, and that you can use dilate and erode to compensate for outlines. But during the week, I don't even know what exactly I was doing, but I was just busy with stuff. And God showed me a way to get the look even more consistent than it was. I remember having to adjust the background repair for the keyframes and all that kind of stuff to get it looking good. But I didn't want to do that every time. I wanted it to be consistent, no matter what scene I threw at it. And there are still a few things that need to be adjusted. For example, when an object is between layers, between these cutout layers, you do get some ghosting, which is really annoying, especially if it's kind of stuck there. But in general, it gives an extremely, extremely good look. Now, previously, the repair was simply everything above the background was just colored in. And unfortunately, it generated ghosting because you would get gaps like where this... Oh, goodness. I have to just change the depth quickly. Yes, one's great. Okay, now where the stick is right now, you wouldn't see what you're seeing right now. You would see that there was this weird ghosting going on, depending on whichever way the method moved everything. There would be this extra stick hole in the ground where there would be this absolutely flat, horrible color. And the reason that happened was because the repair only cleaned everything forward. It didn't have any more information to use. So what God showed me was to actually use the difference between the layers to add additional repairs to the background, so that no matter what happens in terms of the moving, the ghosting would be minimal, absolutely minimal. Now, there's still more that can be done to improve it, because there's still some ghosting that goes on that's really annoying around some edges. But well, I'm sure he'll help me get to that later on. However, I do want to show you guys what it looked like before versus what it looks like now, the repair. Okay, anyway, it's a little bit more defined here. So basically all it did was it would take this information over here. Let me just extend it. Yeah, it would just take this information and it would pull everything down this way. You can't work like that. It's not enough. You can see that it erased the palm trees and all that kind of stuff because this is the furthermost background. You can imagine what kind of ghosting this would cause if the stick was removed and this blue line was left on the ground. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So because God gave me this method and because it adds additional repairs, you don't get just this. I'm going to show you what you get. Now, if you get stuff removed, like the stick, which you can see over here, you can see that this is what will be in the space where the stick was. And that's perfectly fine. It's absolutely perfectly fine. I just love this this additional fixing idea because it just absolutely fills in those gaps. You remember a few weeks ago I showed you guys that image where Moses was looking at Pharaoh and his arm was separated from his body. This repair process should fix that problem. Seriously, it should. Now, the reason you're seeing this black line is because of the depth manipulation. So it's just shifted over, but I don't have wrapping turned on because it just messes with your eyes. I mean, it's a no-go. It's better that there be nothing in your brain, erase it, than for that constant flickering of a floating shape to be there. It's really annoying. So I'm super thankful for the progress God gave me on this method. He also had me double up on the layers, which made a huge difference, but I have to add a few more layers because the background is a little bit too thick, for lack of a better term. It needs to have at least two more layers. I'm not exactly sure. But basically what it does is if you manipulate the background correctly using color ramps, you can still fix the problem. But why do I have to fix the problem? It's supposed to be fixed, right off the bat. So that still needs to get repaired. But this is what the new background looks like. So all the cutouts just get layered over this thing, and it's just absolutely gorgeous, giving you this result, which is infinitely sharper and clearer than the other one. You do have that feeling that you're looking at, cutout puppets, whatever. But unfortunately, I'm not in the position to program something that would actually do this on a per pixel thing. So unfortunately, this is the best I can do right now. That's not making it infinitely slower. Because, you can add hundreds of layers and stuff to make it like super dense, the depth information, which would be great. But it's not practical right now. Blender is way too slow to do that. And secondly, why do you want to make it that slow? Oftentimes, if it's more simple, it actually looks better. Just one of those things, but whatever. So just for the sake of interest, to show you guys what it would look like in color. And I just want to show you guys what it looks like if you adjusted the background to get a few more, a little bit more sense of depth. There we go. So let's check that out. You can see there's a little ghosting around his arm. One thing that still needs work is the foremost layers tend to be shifted up the most. You'll see that there's a lot of repair going on around Aaron's head over here because his head is shifted over this way. And that can cause issues with straight lines like the, what do you call this thing? The dock back here. It also causes problems over here with his head. It's a minor sacrifice. It's a minor sacrifice, IMO. So stuff like this should be solved by adding more and more layers to it that can compensate for outlines, whatever. But I'm very happy with this, except for the little ghosting over there. And here too, you can see that there's a difference in layers. But like I said, there is still a bit of work to be done on this. So the final 3D scene wasn't rendered with this particular modification. It was rendered with the slightly older one that didn't have the additional background repair. But it still turned out well. I'm actually going to show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is the final one that is actually in the project. I might re-render it, might not. But here you can see around his head that there's extensive repairs done, and it's kind of annoying a little bit if you focus on that. If you're not just sitting there watching it and focusing on a specific object, it gets really irritating. But you can see that, here you can see its major repairs. But you can see that it turned out really well. I'm very satisfied with this, especially this, the zoom part over here. Okay, here we got some classic example of the ghosting I was talking about. I'm going to zoom in quite significantly. Look around his jacket over here. You can't miss it. That's what happens when the repair doesn't go the right way. Let me see if I can just show you what that actually looks like. Here we go. This is what happened when it just repaired the background, just flat out repaired it from the back forward. You did not have the additional information. Sometimes it works, like here around the hand, but oftentimes it's just gross. It doesn't work. Anyway, that's it for this week. Have a great one, and God bless you.